I stood in the boardroom of Chen Industries, watching the city lights flicker through floor-to-ceiling windows, as my phone buzzed with another message from my mother. "Family dinner tonight. Your sister has exciting news to share." I didn't need to read between the lines to know what that meant. At 34, I'd learned that in my family, exciting news about my younger sister Maya always came with an unspoken price tag, and somehow I was always the one expected to pay it. My name is Sophia Bennett, and for the past 12 years I've been building something that nobody in my family thought I was capable of achieving, while they assumed I was barely scraping by, working some forgettable job that wasn't worth mentioning at dinner parties. I was actually the silent partner and chief technology officer of one of the fastest-growing biotech firms in the Pacific Northwest. But I never told them. I wanted to see who they really were when they thought I had nothing to offer except my usefulness, my ability to smooth things over, to sacrifice whatever needed sacrificing so everyone else could shine. And tonight, just like every other night for the past 3 decades, they were about to show me exactly who they were. I took the elevator down from the 32nd floor, my reflection in the polished steel doors, showing a woman in a tailored charcoal suit, hair pulled back in a neat bun, carrying a leather portfolio that cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage payment. But when I walked through their front door in 2 hours, they wouldn't see any of that. They'd see what they'd always seen. Dependable Sophia, responsible Sophia, the older daughter who existed to make everyone else's life easier. The drive to my parents' house in the suburbs took 40 minutes. 40 minutes I spent mentally preparing for whatever fresh hell awaited me. My mother's text had that particular tone, that careful excitement that always preceded a request. I'd seen it before when Maya needed money for her destination wedding, when she wanted help with the down payment on her condo, when she decided to quit her 3rd job in 2 years to find herself through an expensive yoga retreat in Bali. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in, a modest 2-story colonial with peeling paint and a garden my mother had given up maintaining years ago. Through the front window, I could see movement, the family already gathering. I sat in my car for a moment longer, watching them through the glass like I was observing strangers, which in many ways they were. My father appeared in the window, his gray hair thinning more than I remembered from last month's obligatory dinner. My mother beside him, gesturing animatedly about something. And then Maya, 28, and glowing with that particular radiance that came from never having worried about money or consequences or what would happen if the safety net disappeared. She'd always had me to catch her after all. I grabbed my purse, left the portfolio in the car because there was no point in bringing evidence of a life they refused to see, and walked toward the front door. Before I could knock, it swung open, and my mother pulled me into a hug that felt more like a capture than an embrace. "Sophia, sweetheart, you're here finally," she said, already steering me toward the dining room. "We've been waiting. Maya has the most wonderful news, and we wanted you to hear it first." First? As if I had any choice in the matter. As if these family announcements weren't carefully orchestrated performances where I played my assigned role of supportive older sister, reliable daughter, the one who would smile and nod and agree to whatever was being asked of me. The dining room table was set with my mother's good china, the plates we only used for special occasions. My father sat at the head of the table, already pouring wine into glasses that didn't match because half the set had broken years ago, and nobody had bothered to replace them. Maya sat to his right, practically vibrating with excitement, her engagement ring, the one I'd secretly helped pay for when her fiancé Marcus couldn't quite afford the one she wanted, catching the light from the overhead fixture. Sit, my mother urged, pushing me toward the chair across from Maya. We have so much to talk about. I sat, arranging my napkin in my lap, preparing myself for whatever was coming. The food was already on the table, pot roast and potatoes and green beans that looked like they'd been cooked to within an inch of their lives. My mother had never been much of a cook, but she tried harder when Maya was around, when there was something to celebrate that didn't involve me. So, Maya began, her voice high and bright, Marcus and I have been talking, and we've made a decision about the wedding. Here it comes, I thought, taking a sip of wine that tasted cheap and slightly sour. We want to move it up, she continued, her eyes shining with tears that I suspected were more performance than genuine emotion. We were going to wait until next fall, but we just can't wait that long. We want to get married this summer, in June, at the lakeside resort. My mother gasped, pressing her hands to her chest in a gesture of delight that looked practiced. My father smiled, nodding as if this was the best news he'd heard all year. And I sat there, doing the math in my head, knowing exactly where this was going. The lakeside resort was the most expensive venue in the state, a sprawling estate on the water with gardens and gazebos, and a price tag that started at $50,000 and went up from there. I knew because I'd looked into it once for a corporate event, back when I was still pretending that my professional life and my family life might someday intersect. That's wonderful, I heard myself say, the words automatic, programmed by decades of being the supportive one. June is beautiful there. I know, Maya gushed, reaching across the table to grab my hand. And Sophia, I want you to be my maid of honor. I know we haven't always been close, but you're my sister, and this wouldn't be complete without you. The request hung in the air, sweet and poisonous. We both knew what she was really saying. I want you to pay for things. I want you to organize things. I want you to make this perfect for me because that's what you do. That's what you've always done. Of course, I said, squeezing her hand even as something inside me twisted with resentment and resignation. I'd be honored. My mother started crying then, actual tears running down her face as she talked about how beautiful it would be, how perfect, how this was everything she'd ever dreamed of for her baby girl. My father proposed a toast to the happy couple, to family, to love and new beginnings. And I raised my glass along with everyone else, smiling until my face hurt, playing my role with the precision of someone who'd been rehearsing it her entire life. But then my mother's next words cut through the celebration like a knife. Of course, with the wedding moved up, there are some financial considerations, she said, her voice taking on that particular tone that always preceded a request for money. The venue requires a deposit, and with everything happening so fast, we haven't had time to save quite as much as we'd hoped. I set down my wine glass carefully, very carefully, because my hands had started to shake and I didn't want anyone to see. How much? I asked, though I already knew the answer would be more than reasonable, more than fair, more than I should be expected to give. My mother glanced at my father, who suddenly became very interested in his pot roast. Maya looked down at her engagement ring, twisting it around her finger. The silence stretched out, thick and uncomfortable. 30,000, my mother finally said. Just for the deposit and the initial catering arrangements. We'll figure out the rest as we go. $30,000. Just like that. Spoken as casually as if she was asking me to pick up milk from the grocery store. That's a lot of money, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice neutral. We know, sweetheart, we know, my mother rushed to say, but you've always been so good with money, so responsible, and you don't have children or a husband to support. Surely you could spare it for your sister's happiness. There it was. The casual dismissal of my life, my choices, my worth, reduced to my utility as a source of funds for everyone else's dreams. I didn't have children, so I didn't need money. I wasn't married, so I had nothing important to spend it on. My life, apparently, was just a holding pattern until my family needed something from me. I need to think about it, I said, standing up from the table. "This is a big decision. Think about it?" Maya's voice went sharp, her perfect facade cracking just slightly. "Sophia, this is my wedding. Our wedding. I'm not asking you to buy me a car, I'm asking you to help me have the most important day of my life." "And I will help," I said, already backing toward the door, needing air, needing space, needing to get out of this house before I said something I couldn't take back. "I just need a little time to figure out the logistics." But my mother was standing now too, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment or both. "Sophia Marie Bennett, you sit back down right now. We're not finished discussing this." Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the use of my full name like I was a child being scolded. Maybe it was the entitled assumption that my money was their money. Maybe it was 34 years of being taken for granted finally reaching a breaking point. "Actually, we are finished," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "I'll call you tomorrow." I walked out before anyone could stop me, before my mother could guilt me back into my chair, before Maya could turn on the tears that always worked so well on Dad. I got into my car and drove, not back to my apartment, but to the office, the one place where I was valued for something other than my bank account. The building was mostly empty at this hour, just security in the lobby and a few ambitious junior analysts burning the midnight oil. I took the elevator back up to 32, back to my office with its view of the city, back to the world I'd built with my own hands while my family assumed I was failing. My phone started ringing before I'd even sat down. Mom, then Maya. Then Dad, probably being pushed to call by my mother who couldn't stand it when people didn't immediately cave to her demands. I let them all go to voicemail, watching the notifications pile up like casualties of a war I hadn't realized I was fighting. I pulled out my laptop and opened the financial modeling software I'd been working on all week. We were close to a breakthrough on a new protocol for drug delivery systems, something that could revolutionize treatment for autoimmune disorders. The project had consumed most of my waking hours for the past 6 months, and we were maybe 3 weeks away from filing the patent applications that would change everything. But as I stared at the screen, the numbers blurring together, all I could think about was the look on Maya's face when she'd asked for $30,000. Not apologetic, not grateful, just entitled, as if it was obvious that I would give it, obvious that my role was to fund her dreams while setting aside my own. My phone buzzed again, a text this time from Maya. "I can't believe you're being so selfish about this. It's my wedding, Sophia, my wedding. Do you even care about me at all?" I stared at the message, at the casual cruelty of it, the assumption that my refusal to immediately hand over a substantial sum of money equaled not caring, as if the past 3 decades of putting her first, of sacrificing my own needs for hers, of being the responsible one so she could be the free spirit, counted for nothing. Another text came through, this time from my mother. "Your sister is crying. She's absolutely devastated. How could you be so cold? After everything we've done for you." Everything they'd done for me, I almost laughed. What exactly had they done? Raised me to believe my value was in my usefulness? Taught me that love was conditional on compliance? Made it clear from the time I was 5 years old that my job was to take care of everyone else, that my feelings were inconvenient, that my achievements only mattered if they somehow reflected well on them. I set down my phone and walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The city stretched out below me, millions of lights marking millions of lives, millions of people who had no idea that Sophia Bennett existed. And that was fine. That was perfect, actually. Because the person my family thought I was, that struggling, barely getting by daughter who lived to serve them, she didn't exist either. The real Sophia Bennett had a net worth that would make my mother faint. The real Sophia Bennett had just been offered a position on the board of a pharmaceutical company worth billions. The real Sophia Bennett was 3 weeks away from filing patents that would generate enough revenue to fund my sister's dream wedding 1,000 times over. But they didn't know that. They'd never asked. They'd simply assumed. And I'd let them assume, because I'd wanted to know who they really were when they thought I had nothing. And now I knew. My phone rang again. This time it was my business partner, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, calling from her home where she was probably reviewing the same data I was supposed to be analyzing. "Sophia," she said when I answered, her voice warm with the kind of respect my family had never shown me. "I know it's late, but I just got off the phone with the FDA liaison. They want to move up our presentation. They're incredibly interested in the treatment protocol, especially after the Phase 2 trial results came back so strong." "How much earlier?" I asked, forcing myself to focus on work, on the thing I was actually good at, on the life I'd built away from my family's endless demands. 2 weeks, which means we need to finalize everything by next Friday at the latest. Can you do it? Could I? Could I put together a presentation that would determine the future of a treatment that could help millions of people while my family was imploding because I wouldn't immediately fund my sister's overpriced wedding? "Yes," I said, and felt something settle in my chest. "I can do it." Good. Because, Sophia, this is it. This is what we've been working toward for 5 years. If this approval goes through, everything changes. Everything changes. The words echoed in my mind after we hung up. Everything was already changing. The careful balance I'd maintained for years, the separation between my professional life and my family life, was collapsing. Soon they would know. Soon everyone would know who I really was, what I'd really accomplished. And I realized, standing there in my office at nearly 10 o'clock at night, that I wasn't dreading that revelation. I was looking forward to it. I went home eventually, to my apartment in the city, the one my family had never visited because it was too far and too much trouble to make the drive. The apartment they assumed was a modest one-bedroom in a questionable neighborhood, when in reality it was a corner-unit penthouse with 3 bedrooms, a chef's kitchen, and a view that had been featured in architectural magazines. I poured myself a glass of wine, real wine this time, from a bottle that cost more than my mother's entire china set, and sat on my balcony watching the city lights mirror the stars above. My phone was still buzzing with messages, each one more desperate and angry than the last. "Mom, we need to talk about this like adults." Maya, "I guess I know where I stand with you." Dad, "Your mother is very upset. Please call." Maya again, "Marcus's family is contributing. Why can't mine?" That last message made me laugh, a bitter sound that scared a bird from the railing. Marcus's family was contributing, because Marcus's family had money, old money from timber and shipping. They'd probably offered to pay for the entire wedding, and Maya had turned them down because she wanted it to be her day, which apparently meant funded by her sister rather than her in-laws. I thought about texting back, about trying to explain myself, about defending my decision to take time to think about a major financial commitment. But what was the point? They didn't want an explanation. They wanted compliance. They wanted me to fall back into my assigned role and stop making waves, so I didn't respond. I just sat there, drinking my expensive wine, watching the city breathe below me, and thought about what Dr. Chen had said. Everything changes. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them while drinking coffee, cataloging the escalating tactics, guilt, anger, manipulation, appeals to family loyalty, thinly veiled threats about what this would do to our relationship. It was like watching a playbook unfold, each move predictable because I'd seen it all before. The newest message was from my mother, sent at 6 in the morning. "Your sister cried herself to sleep last night. She's talking about canceling the wedding entirely. Is that what you want? To ruin her happiness? We never raised you to be so selfish, Sophia. I don't even recognize you anymore." I stared at that last line. I don't even recognize you anymore. The irony was stunning. They'd never recognized me. Not really. They'd recognized the role I played, the function I served, but the actual person I was? They'd never even looked. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up Ms. Bennett. A professional voice, female, efficient. This is Amanda Prescott from Northwest Business Journal. I'm calling to confirm some details for a profile we're running in next month's issue. You were selected as one of our 40 under 40 leaders in biotech, and we'd like to schedule an interview. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, what? The profile? Your business partner, Dr. Chen, nominated you months ago. The selection committee was unanimous. We're very excited to feature your work on the drug delivery system. The preliminary research you've published has generated quite a bit of buzz in the medical community. I sat down heavily on my couch. When does this profile publish? The issue goes to print in 2 weeks, but the digital version will be live before that. We'll be doing a social media campaign around the feature as well. These profiles tend to generate significant attention. I see, I managed to say. Can I call you back to schedule? I'm in the middle of something right now. Of course, but Ms. Bennett, just so you know, this is a significant honor. We received over 500 nominations this year and only selected 40. Your work is truly groundbreaking. After I hung up, I sat very still, processing what had just happened. In 2 weeks, maybe less, my face would be in a business journal. My name would be attached to my company, my research, my success. The careful anonymity I'd maintained would be gone, my family would find out. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm, like I was watching a chess game where the pieces were finally moving into their inevitable positions. I called Dr. Chen. You nominated me for the 40 under 40, I said when she answered. There was a pause. Yes, months ago, before we even knew about the FDA thing. Sophia, you deserve recognition for what you've built. I know you've kept a low profile, but the work is too important to hide. My family doesn't know, I said quietly, about any of it. They think I'm barely getting by. Another pause, longer this time. Why? It was a fair question. Why had I hidden this? Was it just to see who they really were, or was it something deeper? Some part of me that believed I didn't deserve success, that had internalized their low expectations so thoroughly that I couldn't even celebrate my own achievements? I wanted to see if they'd value me without it, I finally said. If they'd love me just for being me, not for what I could give them. And they don't. The words came out flat, factual, stripped of the emotion that had been churning inside me for weeks. They see me as an ATM with a heartbeat, a resource to be tapped whenever they need something. I'm sorry, Dr. Chen said, and she sounded like she meant it. But, Sophia, maybe this is good. Maybe it's time they saw the whole truth. Time you stopped hiding your light because you were afraid they'd try to steal it. After we hung up, I did something I'd been avoiding. I opened my banking app and looked at my accounts, really looked at them. The numbers were staggering even to me. Between my salary, my equity stake in the company, and my investments, I had more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. My sister's $30,000 wedding deposit was literally a rounding error in my portfolio. I could pay for her entire wedding without even noticing the money was gone. I could pay for 10 weddings. I could probably buy the lakeside resort if I wanted to. But that wasn't the point. It had never been about the money. It was about what the request represented, the assumption that I existed to serve their needs, that my life was somehow less valuable because it didn't look like theirs. My phone buzzed again. Maya, predictably. Mom told me about the deposit. She said you're thinking about it. Sophia, please, I need to know yes or no the venue won't hold the date much longer. I looked at that message for a long time, at the casual entitlement in it, the complete lack of acknowledgement that she was asking for more money than many people made in a year. There was no, "I know this is a lot," or "I appreciate you considering it." Just need and expectation. I typed out a response and deleted it, typed another and deleted that too. Finally, I wrote simply, "We need to talk in person. Can you come to the city?" The reply came back immediately. "Why can't you come here? You know I have work." She had work. She had a part-time position at a yoga studio that she'd started 3 months ago, after quitting her job at the marketing firm because her boss was toxic. Before that, it had been the boutique, and before that, the art gallery. Maya had never held a job for more than a year, had never been fired, but had always found reasons to leave, reasons that were always someone else's fault. "I have work too," I typed back. "Important meetings I can't reschedule. If you want to discuss this, you'll need to come here." There was a long pause, long enough that I thought she might refuse. But then, "Fine. Tomorrow. Where?" I gave her my address, the real one, and waited to see what she'd say when she realized it wasn't the modest apartment building she probably imagined. But she just sent back, "Okay," and that was that. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about tomorrow, about Maya walking into my apartment, about the moment when she'd realized that everything she thought she knew about me was wrong. Part of me wanted to prepare her, to soften the blow somehow. But another part, the part that had been diminished and dismissed for 34 years, wanted her to feel it, the shock and confusion of discovering that the sister she'd always looked down on was actually succeeding beyond anything their family had imagined. The next morning, I cleaned my apartment, even though my cleaning service had just been there 2 days ago. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I wanted everything to be perfect when Maya arrived, wanted there to be no room for criticism or dismissal. Or maybe I just needed something to do with my hands while I waited for the confrontation I'd been both dreading and anticipating for years. My doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Maya was nothing if not punctual when she wanted something. I took a breath, smoothed down my shirt, and opened the door. Maya stood there in yoga pants and an expensive jacket, her hair in a perfect ponytail, looking like she'd just stepped out of an athleisure magazine. But her expression changed the moment she saw past me into the apartment, her eyes widening as she took in the soaring ceilings, the exposed brick, the floor-to-ceiling windows with their million-dollar view. "This is where you live?" she said, not even bothering with a greeting. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. She walked in slowly, turning in a circle like she couldn't quite process what she was seeing. The modern furniture, the artwork on the walls, the kitchen with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. I watched her piece it together, watched her mental image of struggling, barely getting by Sophia collide with the reality of my actual life. "I don't understand," she finally said, turning to face me. "How can you afford this? This place must cost—" "More than Mom and Dad's house," I finished for her. "Yes, about 3 times more, actually." "But how? What do you even do? You never talk about work. We all thought—" "You all thought I was failing," I said calmly. "You thought I was barely making ends meet, that I needed your pity and Mom's passive-aggressive concern. You thought my life was small and sad and not worth asking about." Maya's face flushed. "That's not fair. You never told us any different. You let us think." "I didn't let you think anything," I interrupted. "You assumed. You all assumed. And you never once asked me directly about my life, my work, my success, or lack thereof. You just decided who I was based on what was convenient for you." She sank onto my couch without being invited, still looking around like she'd walked into someone else's life. "So, what do you do? Really?" I sat down across from her, in the chair that had cost more than her car payment. "I'm the Chief Technology Officer and silent partner of Chen Biotech. We develop drug delivery systems for chronic illnesses. The company is worth about $400 million right now, and we're about to submit for FDA approval on a treatment that could potentially double that." The words hung in the air between us. Maya's mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. Finally, she whispered, 400 million? My equity stake is 20%, I continued. Might as well lay it all out. So, on paper, I'm worth about 80 million. In practice, with my salary and investments, I'm worth considerably more. 80 million, Maya repeated, like the words didn't make sense in that order. You're worth $80 million. Yes. And you let us think you were broke. You let Mom give you old clothes she didn't want anymore. You let Dad offer to pay for your car repairs. You sat there at dinner and said nothing while they talked about how worried they were about your future. I wanted to see who you all really were, I said quietly. I wanted to know if you'd love me, value me, respect me, when you thought I had nothing to offer. And I got my answer. Maya's face cycled through several emotions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally something that looked like understanding. That's why you hesitated about the wedding money. Not because you can't afford it, but because $30,000 is more money than you've ever asked me for at once, and you asked like it was nothing. Like my money was your money. Like I owed it to you simply for existing. But you do have it, Maya said, and there was something sharp in her voice now. You have so much money you couldn't spend it all if you tried, and you're going to make me beg for help with my wedding. And there it was. Not remorse for assuming I was failing. Not happiness that I was actually succeeding. Just recalculation, adjusting her mental image of me from struggling sister to rich sister who should pay for everything. I never said I wouldn't help with your wedding, I said carefully. I said I needed time to think about it. And I meant it. Because Maya, this isn't about the money. It's about the fact that you asked without even knowing if I could afford it. You just assumed I'd figure it out because that's what I do. I'm the responsible one. The one who takes care of things. So you were testing us, she said, her voice rising. This whole time you were playing some sick game, pretending to be poor so you could judge us. I wasn't pretending to be anything, I just didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference. Maya stood up, pacing now, her hands clenched into fists. Does Mom know? Dad? No. Are you going to tell them? They're about to find out anyway, I said. I'm being profiled in Northwest Business Journal next month. 40 under 40 leaders in biotech. It'll be public knowledge soon. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh my God, Mom is going to lose her mind. She's been telling everyone that I'm the successful one, that you're still figuring things out. This is going to humiliate her. Maybe she should have asked before deciding, I said softly. Maybe she should have known her daughter well enough to not make assumptions. We stood there in silence for a long moment, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, casting long shadows across my expensive furniture. I'd imagined this conversation 100 times, but I'd always pictured more drama, more emotion. Instead, there was just this hollow understanding settling between us. Will you still help with the wedding? Maya finally asked, and her voice was small now, uncertain. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She was beautiful and spoiled and so accustomed to getting what she wanted that she couldn't even see how her requests might affect other people. But she was also young, younger than me in ways that had nothing to do with age. She'd been protected her whole life, shielded from consequences, given everything she asked for without having to earn it. And whose fault was that? Mom and Dad's, certainly, but also mine. I'd enabled it. I'd played my role so well that Maya had never had to learn what it meant to stand on her own. Yes, I said finally. I'll help. But not the way you're expecting. Maya's face went through a series of rapid changes when I said those words. Hope, confusion, suspicion. She sat back down on my couch, perching on the edge like she might need to run at any moment. What do you mean? She asked carefully. I walked to my kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water, taking my time, letting her sit with her uncertainty. When I came back, I handed her one and sat across from her again. I'll pay for your wedding, I said. The whole thing, not just the deposit. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, everything on your dream list. Consider it my gift to you. Her face lit up, relief and joy flooding her features. Oh my God, Sophia, thank you. Thank you so much. I knew you'd come through. I told Mom you would. But, I continued, and she froze. There are conditions. The joy dimmed. What kind of conditions? First, you're going to get a job, a real job. Something full-time, with benefits and a regular paycheck. Something you commit to for at least a year. I have a job, she protested. You have a part-time gig at a yoga studio where you teach 3 classes a week. That's not a job, Maya. That's a hobby with a paycheck. Her face flushed. It's what I love doing. Then do it in your spare time. But you need to learn what it means to support yourself, to rely on your own work ethic instead of other people's money. She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going. Second, you and Marcus are going to pay me back for the wedding, not all at once. We'll set up a payment plan, something manageable, maybe $1,000 a month for however long it takes, but you're going to pay me back. But you just said it's a gift. It's a loan structured as a gift. There's a difference. I'm giving you the money up front so you can have your dream wedding, but you're going to earn it. You're going to learn that things cost money, that someone had to work for what you're getting. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or performative. With her, it was always hard to tell. Why are you being so mean about this? She asked. You have more money than you could ever spend. Why make me jump through hoops? Because nobody ever made you jump through hoops, I said gently. Nobody ever taught you that actions have consequences, that money doesn't just appear when you need it. And Maya, I love you, I do, but I won't enable you anymore. I won't be part of the reason you never learned to stand on your own. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her water glass. When she finally looked up, there was something different in her eyes. Not anger, exactly, more like recognition. You think I'm spoiled, she said. I think you've been protected from reality in ways that haven't served you well. And I think I'm partially responsible for that. What about Mom and Dad? She asked. Are you going to tell them about the money, about your company? They'll find out soon enough. The article publishes in 2 weeks. They're going to be so hurt that you didn't tell them. Are they? I asked. Or are they going to be hurt that they can't claim credit for my success? That they can't tell their friends they always knew I'd do great things? Maya didn't answer, which was answer enough. She left an hour later, after we'd worked out the details of what she needed to do to earn the wedding money. Get a full-time job within 30 days, maintain it for at least 6 months before the wedding, start making payments 6 months after the wedding. She'd agreed to all of it, though I could tell she was hoping I'd change my mind once she talked to our mother. But I wouldn't. For the first time in my life, I was setting boundaries, real ones, and I was going to maintain them even when it was uncomfortable. After Maya left, I called Dr. Chen. How did it go? She asked. About as well as expected. She was shocked, then angry, then calculating, and finally resigned. I told her I'd pay for the wedding with conditions. Conditions? I explained the arrangement, and I could almost hear Elizabeth smiling through the phone. You're teaching her to be accountable. That's good. That's really good, Sophia. I hope so. Or I just made everything worse. You didn't trust me. I grew up with 2 younger brothers who thought money grew on trees. The best thing my parents ever did was make them earn their own way. It was hard at the time, but they're better men for it now. That evening, my mother called. I let it ring 3 times before answering, steeling myself for the conversation I knew was coming. Sophia Marie Bennett, she said before I could even say hello. What did you say to your sister? We had a conversation about the wedding. She came home crying, Sophia. She said you're making her get a job and pay you back for your own sister's wedding. What has gotten into you? I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights that had become as familiar to me as my mother's disappointed sighs. Mom, when was the last time you asked me about my life? Really asked, not just in passing, but genuine curiosity about what I do, how I'm doing, what matters to me. There was a pause. That's not fair. We talk all the time. We talk about Maya. We talk about your friends and Dad's health and the neighbors. We don't talk about me. Well, you never want to talk about your work. Every time I ask, you change the subject. Do you know what I do for a living, Mom? Specifically? Another pause, longer this time. You work in something with computers? Tech something? Biotech. I'm a biotechnology researcher and executive. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering from Stanford. Stanford? You went to state school. For undergrad. Then I got my PhD at Stanford on a full scholarship. You didn't know because you never asked. I sent you an invitation to my graduation. You said you couldn't make it because Maya had a yoga retreat that weekend. The silence on the other end was deafening. My mother started, then stopped. I didn't realize. I know you didn't. Just like you didn't realize that I haven't needed your financial advice or your hand-me-down clothes or your pity. I've been fine, Mom. Better than fine. I've been building something remarkable while you all assumed I was failing. Why didn't you tell us? It was the same question Maya had asked, and I gave her the same answer. I wanted to see who you'd be when you thought I had nothing. And you know what I discovered? That I'm only valuable to this family when I can give you something. My money, my time, my energy. But me, just me, as a person, that's never been enough. That's not true. Her voice was shaking now. We love you, Sophia. You're our daughter. Do you? Because love isn't just a word, Mom. It's action. It's showing up. It's taking interest. It's seeing someone for who they really are, not who you need them to be. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to think about it. Really think about it. And when you're ready to have an honest conversation about our family and how we treat each other, I'll be here. I hung up before she could respond, before she could make excuses or turn things around to make me the villain. My hands were shaking, my heart racing. I'd never stood up to my mother like that. I'd never put words to the feeling that had been growing in my chest for years. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Over the next week, I threw myself into work. The FDA presentation was coming together beautifully, Dr. Chen and I working in perfect sync like we always did. The drug delivery system we'd developed had the potential to change how medications were administered for chronic conditions, making treatments more effective with fewer side effects. It was the kind of work that reminded me why I'd chosen this field in the first place, my family called several times. Maya, trying to negotiate the terms of our agreement. Dad, trying to be the peacemaker. Mom, leaving voicemails that cycled between hurt and angry. I responded to some and ignored others, no longer feeling obligated to answer every call, to fix every problem, to be available at every moment. The article about the 40 under 40 came out on a Wednesday morning. I woke up to 17 text messages and 9 missed calls. The digital version had gone live at midnight, and apparently the entire world had seen it before I had. I made coffee and finally opened the link Amanda had sent me. The profile was beautiful, better than I'd expected. They'd used a professional photo from last year's biotech conference, and I looked confident, capable, like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. The article detailed my work, my education, my role in developing the new treatment protocol. It quoted colleagues calling me brilliant and dedicated. It mentioned the company's valuation and my equity stake. It laid everything bare. My phone rang again. This time it was Maya, and I answered. Everyone is talking about the article, she said, her voice strange. It's everywhere. Mom's friends keep calling her, asking if it's really you. Is this really real, Sophia? All of it? Yes. Jesus. A long pause. I read the part about the drug delivery system, about the patients it could help. Sophia, that's actually important. Like really important. I know. I never understood. When you said biotech, I thought you meant like working at a pharmacy or something. I didn't realize you were doing actual research, saving actual lives. You never asked, I said softly. None of you did. I'm sorry. And for the first time, she sounded like she meant it. I'm really sorry, Sophia. I should have asked. I should have cared more about your life instead of just what you could do for mine. The apology settled between us, small but significant. I got a job interview, she said after a moment. Marketing coordinator at a nonprofit. It's full-time with benefits. I have to interview tomorrow. That's good, Maya. Really good. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I'm not good at it? What if I can't do what you do, work full-time, be responsible? You won't know until you try, and Maya, it's okay to be scared. That's how you know you're growing. After we hung up, I sat with my coffee and finally let myself read the comments section of the online article. Most were congratulatory, people in the medical community praising the research. But there were others too, people who'd known me in various contexts, expressing surprise, confusion, a few noting that they'd always known she was special. One comment stood out, though. It was from Helen Morrison, one of our trial participants, an elderly woman with rheumatoid arthritis who'd been in our Phase 2 study. Dr. Bennett changed my life, she'd written. I can hold my grandson now without pain. I can garden again. I can live instead of just surviving. She saw us, the patients everyone else overlooks, and she built something beautiful for us. She's a hero. I read that comment 3 times, feeling tears prick at my eyes. This was why. This was why I'd worked 100-hour weeks, why I'd poured everything into this research, why it mattered that I'd succeeded despite my family's lack of support or understanding. My office phone rang. The receptionist. Dr. Bennett, your mother is here to see you. She says it's urgent. I looked at the clock. 10 in the morning. She must have driven straight here after seeing the article. Send her up, I said, and prepared for whatever was coming next. When my mother walked into my office, she looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was graying at the temples, her face lined with worry. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was allowed to enter, looking around at my office with the same expression Maya had worn in my apartment. Hi, Mom, I said, standing up. Come in. She walked in slowly, taking in the view, the degrees on my wall, the papers scattered across my desk. She stopped in front of the window, staring out at the city. I never knew you worked somewhere like this, she said quietly. You never asked. She turned to face me, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. Real tears, not the performative kind she used when she wanted something. I read the article, she said, all of it. I read about your research and your company and what you're trying to do, Sophia. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think you were struggling? I sat down on the edge of my desk, suddenly tired. Because I wanted to know if you'd love me anyway. If I'd be enough just as I was, without achievements or money or anything to offer except myself. And you think we don't? Her voice broke on the question, you think we don't love you? I think you love the version of me that serves you, the responsible daughter who takes care of things. But do you love the real me? The person with dreams and feelings and needs of her own? I honestly don't know, Mom. And that's the problem. She sank into one of my office chairs, looking older than her 60 years. I've been thinking about what you said on the phone, about asking about your life, about really seeing you. And you're right, I didn't see you. I saw what I expected to see, what was easiest to see. Why? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. Because if I really looked, I'd have to acknowledge how different you are from me, how much more you've accomplished. And that's hard, Sophia. It's hard to watch your child surpass you in every way and know that they did it without you, maybe even despite you. The honesty surprised me. I'd expected excuses, justifications, deflections, not this raw admission. I wasn't trying to surpass you, I said gently. I was just trying to be myself. I know that now. She looked up at me, her eyes red. I read what that patient wrote, about how you changed her life, and I realized I don't know my own daughter well enough to know she's capable of changing lives. What kind of mother doesn't know that about her child? The kind who was too busy managing appearances to see reality, I said, not unkindly. Mom, I don't hate you. I'm not trying to punish you. I just can't keep being the person you need me to be at the expense of who I actually am. What do you need from me? She asked. Tell me. I want to fix this. I thought about that question, really thought about it. What did I need from her? I need you to be curious about my life, to ask questions and actually listen to the answers. I need you to stop treating Maya like she's fragile and me like I'm indestructible. I need you to acknowledge that you made mistakes in how you raised us, how you treated us differently, how you let me shoulder responsibilities that weren't mine to carry. And then what? If I do all that, then we can go back to normal? We can't go back to normal, Mom. Normal wasn't working. Normal was killing our relationship slowly. We have to move forward to something new, something healthier. She nodded slowly, processing, I'll try. I can't promise I'll be perfect at it, but I'll try. That's all I'm asking. We sat in silence for a while, the morning sun streaming through my office windows. It wasn't resolution, not really. It was just a beginning, a small crack in the wall that had been building between us for decades. Your sister told me about the conditions for the wedding, Mom said finally, making her get a job and pay you back. And? I think it's good. She needs to learn what you learned, how to stand on her own. I should have taught her that myself. She smiled sadly. I should have taught both of you a lot of things I didn't. My office phone buzzed. Dr. Chen. I have to take this, I told Mom. It's about the FDA presentation. She stood up, collecting her purse. I should go anyway. Let you get back to your important work. She paused at the door. I'm proud of you, Sophia. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of you. The words hit harder than I expected, bringing tears to my eyes. Thank you, Mom. After she left, I took Dr. Chen's call. The FDA had moved up our presentation again to next week. We had 5 days to finalize everything, to prepare for the moment that would determine the future of years of work. I should have been stressed, but instead I felt calm, clear. For the first time in my life, my personal and professional worlds were aligned. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more splitting myself into pieces to fit everyone else's expectations. The FDA presentation was on a Friday morning in Washington, D.C. Dr. Chen and I flew out the night before, reviewing our slides and data in the hotel lobby until midnight. I'd given presentations before, hundreds of them, but this felt different, more significant. Not just for the company or for our bank accounts, but for the patients whose lives hung in the balance. The FDA offices were imposing, all steel and glass and government efficiency. We were led into a conference room with a panel of reviewers, people who would determine whether our years of work translated into something that could actually help people I'd spent so long hiding, being small, not drawing attention to myself and my family life. But here, in this room, I let myself be big. I presented our data with confidence, answered questions with precision, and made the case for why this treatment protocol deserved approval. When it was over, when we'd said everything we came to say, the lead reviewer looked at Dr. Chen and me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "This is exceptional work," she said finally. "Truly exceptional. We'll need to complete our full review process, but I can tell you that what you've presented today is exactly the kind of innovation the medical community needs." In the taxi back to the airport, Dr. Chen grabbed my hand. "You were brilliant in there," she said. "Absolutely brilliant." "We were brilliant," I corrected. "This is both of ours." "No, Sophia. You led that presentation. You answered the hard questions. You made them believe. This is your triumph." My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Just had my second interview. They offered me the job. Full-time marketing coordinator. I start in 2 weeks. Thank you for pushing me to do this." Then another text. "Also, I found a wedding planning checklist that doesn't require a 6-figure budget. Marcus and I talked. We're scaling back. We want a wedding that's about us, not about impressing people. Still getting married at the resort, but making it smaller, more meaningful." I showed the texts to Dr. Chen, who smiled. "Look at that. Growth all around." This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. The wedding ended up being in September, not June. Maya needed those extra months to save money from her new job, to plan something that fit within a budget that was generous, but not ridiculous. I helped, of course, but this time my help came with boundaries. I offered advice when asked, contributed financially in ways that felt right, but I didn't take over. I didn't make it my responsibility to ensure everything was perfect. And you know what? It was better for it. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, about 50 people instead of the 200 Maya had originally wanted. The venue was the lakeside resort, but we used their smaller garden space, not the grand ballroom. The flowers were local and seasonal. The food was good but not extravagant. And Maya, in her simple but elegant dress, looked happier than I'd ever seen her. During her vows, she said something that made me cry. "I've learned this year that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about showing up. It's about seeing each other clearly and choosing each other anyway. Marcus sees me, really sees me, and he loves me not despite my flaws, but with them." I caught her eye from my place in the wedding party, and she smiled at me, a real smile, full of gratitude and new understanding. The FDA approval came through in October. The treatment protocol was greenlit for widespread use, and our company's valuation doubled overnight, just like we'd predicted. The press coverage was extensive, my face appearing in medical journals and business publications, the story of the woman who'd revolutionized drug delivery systems. My parents read every article. My mother started a scrapbook, carefully cutting out each mention and pasting it into a leather-bound album. When she showed it to me at Thanksgiving, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I want to remember," she said quietly. "I want to remember what I almost missed by not paying attention." That Thanksgiving was different from all the others before it. We ate at a restaurant instead of trying to recreate some perfect home-cooked meal. Maya and Marcus were there, tired from working full weeks at their respective jobs, but happy. Dad asked me detailed questions about the FDA approval process, really listening to my answers. Mom showed interest in my upcoming speaking engagement at a medical conference, asking if she could come watch. "You'd want to do that?" I asked, surprised. "I want to see you in your element," she said. "I want to see the Sophia I didn't take the time to know before." It wasn't perfect. Old patterns still emerged sometimes. Mom still occasionally treated Maya with kid gloves, and she still sometimes expected me to have all the answers. But when I pointed it out gently, she tried to correct it. And that effort mattered more than perfection ever could. Helen Morrison sent me a Christmas card that year. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for seeing us when we were invisible. Thank you for building something beautiful. You changed my life." I kept that card on my desk, next to the photos of our research team and the framed first page of the FDA approval letter. It reminded me what everything was for, why it mattered that I'd kept building even when my family didn't understand. Maya paid me back for the wedding, slowly, month by month. I didn't need the money, but I knew she needed to give it. Each payment was a step toward independence, toward self-respect, toward becoming the person she wanted to be, instead of the person our family had made her. One evening in February, I got a call from my mother. "I've been in therapy," she said without preamble. "Individual therapy, working through some things about how I was raised, how I raised you girls. My therapist thinks it would be good if we could do some sessions together, you and me, just us. Would you be willing?" Would I? A year ago, I would have said no. A year ago, I was still carrying so much anger, so much hurt. But something had shifted. I'd learned that I could have boundaries and still have relationships I could demand better, and still love the people who'd failed me. "Yes," I said, "I'd be willing." Those therapy sessions were hard, really hard. We talked about things we'd never discussed, feelings we'd always avoided. Mom cried a lot. I cried too, but we also laughed sometimes, finding moments of connection in our shared memories, the good ones we'd both nearly forgotten in the weight of the bad. In one session, she asked me the question I'd been waiting for since the beginning. "Do you forgive me? For not seeing you, for taking you for granted, for all of it?" I thought about it carefully before answering, "I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't something that happens all at once, Mom. It's a choice I make every day. Some days it's easier than others, but I'm trying, we both are, and maybe that's enough." Spring came, and with it, new growth in more ways than one. Chen Biotech opened a second research facility. We hired 20 new researchers. I promoted Julia, my deputy, to Chief Operations Officer, giving myself more time to focus on the research I loved. I also started a foundation, using some of my considerable wealth to fund scholarships for first-generation college students pursuing STEM degrees, the Sophia Bennett Foundation for Scientific Excellence. My mother cried when I told her about it. Actual tears of pride, and maybe a little regret for the years she'd wasted not knowing this person I'd become. Maya got pregnant in April. She called me before she called Mom, sobbing happy tears into the phone. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "What if I'm like Mom was with us? What if I play favorites? What if I mess this kid up?" "You won't," I told her, "because you're aware of it, because you're asking these questions now, before the baby even gets here. That awareness matters, Maya. It changes everything." "Will you be the godmother?" "I'd be honored." That May, I gave a TED Talk, Building Success from Silence, The Power of Defining Your Own Worth. 22 minutes on stage, telling my story, the real story, about hiding my success to test my family's love, about building boundaries, about learning that your worth isn't determined by whether the people who should love you can actually see you. The talk went viral, millions of views, thousands of comments from people saying, "This is my story too," or "I needed to hear this," or "You've given me permission to stop making myself small." My mother watched it 7 times. She told me she paused it at the part where I talked about wanting to be loved for just being me, not for what I could give. She said she sat with that thought for hours, thinking about all the times she'd valued my usefulness over my humanity. "I can't change the past," she told me, "but I can do better now. I can see you now." And she was trying, really trying. She asked about my work, listened when I explained the science, showed genuine interest in my life beyond how it affected her. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes she still slipped into old patterns. But the effort was there, consistent and real. The baby came in December, a little boy they named Elliot. When I held him for the first time, Maya watched me with tears in her eyes. "I want to be different with him," she whispered. "I want to really see him, whoever he turns out to be. Will you help me remember that? When I forget?" "I will. I promise." Looking at that tiny face, I thought about cycles, how trauma passes down through generations, how patterns repeat until someone breaks them, how hard it is to be different from what you were taught, but also how possible it is, how people can change, can grow, can learn to love better even after decades of loving poorly. My family would never be perfect. We'd probably never fully heal from all the years of dysfunction and favorites and invisibility. But we were trying. All of us, in our own ways, were trying to build something new from the ruins of what had been. And maybe that was the real success story, not the company or the money or the recognition. But this, the ability to demand better and watch people rise to meet that demand. The courage to set boundaries and maintain them even when it's hard. The wisdom to know that some relationships are worth fighting for, even when the fight is long and painful. I learned that revenge doesn't have to be destructive. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to be small anymore, building a life so full and rich and meaningful that you outgrow the limitations people tried to place on you. Succeeding so thoroughly that the people who dismissed you have no choice but to see you clearly. And then, when they finally do see you, when they finally recognize what they almost missed, choosing grace. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because carrying anger forever is just another way of staying small. Because forgiveness is the final boundary, the one that says, you can't hurt me anymore, but I won't let you keep hurting me either. 2 years after that Thanksgiving, when everything exploded, I stood at a podium accepting a humanitarian award for my work in making healthcare accessible to underserved populations. My entire family was in the audience. Mom, Dad, Maya, holding Elliot, even some aunts and uncles who'd always thought I was the unremarkable daughter. In my acceptance speech, I talked about being invisible, about building something meaningful in the shadows, about the moment when silence becomes voice and invisibility becomes power. I spent most of my life hidden, I said, not because I was ashamed of who I was, but because I needed to know who I was without external validation. I needed to build worth from the inside out, not from the outside in. And what I learned is that your value doesn't come from who recognizes it. It's inherent. It's yours. The moment you understand that, truly understand it, everything changes. After the ceremony, my mother hugged me for a long time. I see you now, she whispered. I'm so sorry it took so long, but I see you now. I know, Mom, I know. And I did know. I believed her. Not because the past was erased, but because the present was different, because she'd done the work, because we all had. That night, driving home through the city I'd conquered while everyone thought I was failing, I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, the one who sat at that Thanksgiving table, listening to her mother explain away her life, accepting the role of invisible daughter because she didn't know she could demand more. I thought about what I'd tell her if I could go back. That it gets better. That standing up for yourself is terrifying and worth it. That some people will surprise you with their capacity for growth and others won't, and both outcomes are okay. That you can't force people to see you, but you can stop hiding. That success isn't revenge, but it's definitely justice. Most of all, I'd tell her this. You are enough. You've always been enough. And the moment you believe that, really believe it, nothing can keep you invisible anymore. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 37 years old. I'm a scientist, an executive, a sister, a daughter, a godmother. I'm rich beyond my family's imagination and fulfilled beyond what I thought possible. But more than any of that, I'm finally visible. To others, yes. But more importantly, to myself. And that makes all the difference.